Hello and welcome to St Michael's Hill. This week's video is going to be very much focused around the Knightwing fuel tank kit. So I'm going to be taking it from this state, which is fairly put together, although most of it still needs to be glued together, to something finished that's going to look along the lines of this, which I put together a few weeks ago in a video. So there's going to be various steps in painting it and getting it together. In addition, I'm going to build a bund wall, which you see on most kind of fuel tanks. Effectively, it's just an area which has a wall around it to catch any kind of spill or anything like that. Usually it's got some sort of kind of ballast or something within it. So I'm going to create that and basically create a kind of final little model that will be able to be used on the new layout. Just before we start today, there's a couple of things that I kind of want to say. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has given me any sort of congratulations for hitting the 1,000 subscriber mark. It's been great that so many of you have been so kind of generous with your kind words, and yeah, it's been really, really nice. Thank you to those who have already entered the giveaway. Again, all those people who kind of said they will, you obviously still got until the 23rd of November, I think it is. If you'd still like to get involved, check out last week's video for all the details, but effectively just looking for people to kind of give shout outs on video to other modelling YouTube channels. So check out last week's video and please enter. It would be great for you, great for the people you shout out, and it's also good for me as well. So yeah, that would be great. Speaking of kind of giveaways for 1,000 subscribers, I was actually lucky enough to win the one from John Warner's Piccadilly model railway. So when he hit 1,000 subscribers, there was I think a 00 and an N gauge competition, and I was lucky enough to win this Gauge Master track cleaning wagon as part of his prize. So just like to thank John and also give him a massive congratulations once again for hitting 1,000 subscribers. At the end of this video, I'm going to have some running session as always, and I will include some of this wagon being pulled around. Obviously, as someone modelling the kind of late 90s, network rail probably wouldn't fit into the kind of layout, so I will probably be at some point stripping this down and painting it up again, either into a rail track type van or just something that looks a little bit kind of a bit more discreet, that will be on the railway. So you will see this probably in a different form, but at the end of this video it will be running around in its network rail colours. It will probably be the last time you see any network rail running around on St Michael's Hill. But a massive thank you to John, and once again, congratulations, mate. So the first thing that I'm going to do with the oil tanks is basically get the kit built and kind of glued together. At the moment, a lot of this stuff is just kind of held in place, and I'll get it all painted up to a very similar standard as to what you saw on the fuel point. So I'm going to get that probably done off camera, to be honest. There's probably not too much that I'll be doing different, so if you want to see how I did this, check out the previous week's video. I think it was a couple of weeks ago when I looked at the fuel point. It gives you some kind of ideas about how I'm doing that, but I'll be following very similar techniques. So as if by magic, that's all kind of constructed now and painted up. It's still in two parts, so the tanks are all one part and the frame here is another part. So well, it's in three parts, I guess, because the tanks are separate. The next thing to do is going to be to build a wall that goes completely around the tank. So to do that, I'm going to be using some cardboard to get the frame right, and then a kind of plasticard brick effect to kind of coat the wall. So as you can see, well, this is going to be what I'll be looking at creating. The only thing that I'm going to probably wait and do is have a fixed base. So once the wall's in place and it's put on the layout, I will fill the gap all in here with some kind of ballast or sand. Basically that's to kind of catch any kind of oil spills that may or may not happen, and generally kind of keep things a bit tidier. The other thing that I may or may not do is put a small wall around each one of the areas here. Again, it's something that I've seen at certain depots, so that's something I might look to do. But for now, this video is going to be very much concentrating on getting the wall in place. Once the wall has been coated each side with a brick plasticard and then given a cornerstone top, I will then weather the tanks and the wall all at the same time. The paint on there at the moment is really just kind of, it has been done using some washes, so there's kind of some weathering already, but I really want to kind of add some rusting and things like that, so it'll be far more detailed and far more weathered. So the first thing I'm going to do is just use some rocket card glue to put the frame together, and then I'm going to cut out some brick plasticard and some plain plasticard that I'll engrave to go around the top. And once that's done, I will get back to you. So I've now added the plasticard strips to the card frame, and as you can see, it's kind of coming together now. It just needs to have the tops kind of covered up. I'm going to use some plasticard strip, just plain plasticard that I'm going to engrave some kind of capping stones onto, and I'll give that a quick paint and get that on top of there as well. Once that's done, the general structure is going to be complete, and I'm going to look at weathering the whole thing. So adding a little bit of rust. The brick wall is going to be painted up and kind of added some kind of streaks and limestone, limescale and all that sort of stuff that I usually use for brick walls. So there'll be kind of white and green and all that sort of stuff, as well as some kind of other brick colours. And then that'll be pretty much it. So hopefully at that point it'll all look a little bit more alive. So the walls are kind of painted up now, and the capping's been put on. What I've used there is just a thin sheet of plasticard, and then I've painted that with a Plasticoat suede colour. It's got some kind of indentations. I don't know how obvious it'll be to see, probably not too obvious, but just indentations to kind of show the capping stones. And I basically added those on. It just needs a little bit of weathering. There's a few areas that need kind of sanding and tidying up, as they're a little bit rough, which is always going to be the case. I'll probably either add a little bit of filler on that bottom corner there, or use some sort of foliage to cover that up when it's in position. The only other thing I've done is added a little bit of kind of silver paint to some of these grates, just to give a kind of impression that maybe they've been kind of used a lot and the paint's kind of worn off them. Next job is to kind of add, like I said, the weathering to the brick plasticard. I have put in a bit of a dark coat already, bit of a wash that's kind of filled in some of that what's the word, grouting, and also given a kind of slightly darker impression. So just needs to be added to, and then I'm going to add some rust, like I said, to the tanks and to the piping, just to kind of give it a bit more of a rundown look. A lot of these tanks were kind of very rusty towards the end of their lives, and certainly this one's going to be in that condition. So to use what I'm going to use for that is probably some rustic. That was quite effective on some of my previous kind of attempts of weathering and adding rust, so I'll probably use that. So basically areas kind of where there's joints on these railings will probably be given some rust, kind of the corners, and then on the side of the tanks as well. It's quite common from a lot of the pictures that I've seen. So I'll be doing that, and then I'll be getting pretty close to completing the project. And here's the final result. I'm very happy with how everything's come out. Obviously when it is going to be fixed to the layout, I will make sure that the these bits are all kind of stuck down and in position, but generally very happy with all this. The inside, like I said, will be filled with either ballast or sand or something like that, just to kind of keep that kind of prototypical look. The rust has gone on kind of fairly kind of nicely in various patches. There's some areas that are a bit heavier than others. I've given the wall kind of some kind of white and some graffiti and some kind of green lines as well. I'm just very happy with how that's come out as well. And the final thing, similar to the kind of roof of the shed, is just with a sponge kind of added on some little kind of white patches that kind of maybe represent kind of bird poo or something similar, just to kind of give that kind of finished look. But generally very, very happy with how this has all come together. Here it is up against the fuel point. I'm very happy with both. I think they're going to go together very well. Look like they probably put up around the same sort of period, and have suffered a similar sort of kind of age and all that sort of thing. So generally very happy with how this has all come out. Like I said, once it hits the layout itself, it'll all be fixed in position, and will be very, very nice indeed. So thank you very much for joining me today on St Michael's Hill. I hope that you found kind of that interesting, some kind of techniques, and I guess hopefully it shows you what you can do with a plastic kit. Really, I think the painting is a part of kit building that a lot of people get a little bit worried about or intimidated by, but really, as a novice myself, if I can kind of get these sort of results, it's something that you can do too. Just about layering up, I guess, paint and weathering effects, just to kind of keep going until you get something that you're happy with. It's very difficult to overdo something like this, really. As long as you go with thin layers and really layer them up, you won't kind of go wrong, I don't think. And if you do, just add a bit more paint or weathering, or use some thinners to pull it off. It's very much a case of trial and error, and you'll get something that you like. So I hope you found this interesting. I will leave you with some running shots from the old layout, and including the track cleaning wagon that I won as well. So once again, thank you to John Warner for that. I will see you again next week on St Michael's Hill, where I probably will not be bringing you baseboard updates yet, but there'll certainly be something else. Anyway, thanks very much, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. As always, thank you for watching today. More videos from me are available by clicking on the top left-hand corner of this page. If you haven't subscribed, please do by hitting the button in the bottom right-hand corner. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.